Good evening and a really warm welcome back. The second session, we will start with a clip from Madhavan, message from Baghdad.
अभिषेकन में सभी मैं परम धाम निवासी श्रेष्ठ आत्मा हूँ। इस स्मृति के स्विच को ऑन करो और कोई भी स्मृति नहीं हो, कोई बुद्धि में हलचल नहीं हो। अचल
This message to activate the memory of being from the home. It was really helpful yesterday, this angle that if we have a mission, then we don't have time for the petty things. And the mission is of the invisible guest who has come from the home, in that memory and that smriti, that awareness of being completely safe and completely separate. This yoga would be with the main thing. And one aspect about the topic, if we face this notion of the idea of death, there is no death. It's only, as we know, soul doesn't die, but to really see it clearly. And I think today will be interesting to see how it develops. This idea to be carefree all along. Of course, this is the invisible traveler. And this aspect, it's not even your body, it is as if given by God. And it was mentioned yesterday, if we ignore death, then there are complications at different levels. So great to have this topic. It felt very rich yesterday to hear your sharings, and going to hand over now to Prashant. Good evening.
Thank you, and hello, good evening.
Also, very welcome to come into camera. It'll be great to see you. So, thank you.
And as was discussed yesterday, let us start with immortality, and that gives us a better perspective towards everything else. And for this, we necessarily need to use our best sight. It is a game of a second. Everything changes. And with this best sight, we can see the story for what it is. Everything that happened today, it happened in the story. And we can see the world beyond the story. And when we see the story, it also means it is not our world. It is not our story, it is a story. We see the world beyond the story. And instantly we are in that region of immortality. We understand everyone is safe, eternally safe, everyone is noble. It's the world with God, world of God. And this is our world. In this environment, the true self wakes up. Ordinarily, we don't use the letter I in a casual way. The true self is awake. And for him, it is normal to be that invisible observer. It is normal to be like that tiny point. Normal to be immortal. Normal to belong to that supreme sky. And also so obvious is complete independence from the story. As we continue with our journey, we remember this immensely beautiful truth of everyone and beautiful truth of the invisible traveler. Thank you. We heard in the today's Murli that incorporeal stage, Baba was underlining this highest thing, incorporeal stage and the karmatic stage. Baba said they are like alike. And soul consciousness, we are talking about the same thing. What is the litmus test? How do you know at any moment during your meditation practice even that you are soul conscious? It is really the soul who is conscious and not some ego saying I am soul, I am incorporeal. Ego can also say this. So have you got a way to know when it is your soul consciousness is really soul conscious and you are not, because ego will of course try. Ego is the first one to say I am the angel and Mera Baba. That is, ego will be on the front line with the chant. How do they discriminate? Otherwise, time can be spent just, ego is able to survive because he can adapt. Darwin's theory of evolution, his principle is survival of not the fittest, but survival of one who can adapt. And ego survives because he can adapt. So he will adapt to your new life, spiritual life. So how do you know when you are soul conscious? Do you have a way of knowing?
Someone's written experience of love, positivity, joy, and benevolence.
Sure, nice. It is like we need a test. Litmus test means it clearly tells you yes or no. The body consciousness can also have lots of all these songs on love. They are not soul conscious, and there are lots of love everywhere and happiness also everywhere.
Total silence and no noise in the mind. No sorrow, not experiencing sorrow.
Sure.
Freedom, experience of light, being in the light, or feeling light.
One area which is relevant for us to know, what we often show here is the physical world, and in our physical world, for our soul consciousness, the only competition, either you are soul conscious or you are in the ego. There is no third option. Either you are in some false identity or you are soul conscious. We, during our practice, a short practice, just a minute ago, last sentence was one who is conscious, one who is awake, he understands his complete independence from the physical world. He feels it. It is separate. That is not his world. Nothing there belongs to him. Just like if you are watching a film, that is separate. Your world is different. You go to some other country, that is not yours. You may go visit there, but that is not yours. You know your complete independence from that place. You have not bought any land there, you don't have anyone there, so you are free. The soul who is conscious, he will feel that complete independence. The ego will never feel it, because ego is embodiment of attachments. Ego is based on that story. He identities, no? So he identifies with the body. If not body, he's identifying with something there. Some role somewhere, some jobs. That is something is mine, and something is, he has preferences there. is trapped in it. So he will never feel that is a separate world. And this is worth checking again and again. If we are in the game of getting the soul awareness right, yesterday we heard that is the main thing. Baba said yesterday's Murli. Soul consciousness is the main thing. That is the foundation. God is God because he's soul conscious. Deities are deities because they are soul conscious. So that is that has to be put in place. And we might as well do it properly if we are doing it. And competition will be constantly from some identity inside. It wants to survive, constant competition. But that's fine. So in the next minute, let us get this practice. So in what is our practice? We are reminding that the invisible player is the invisible soul. We are just using some different words that allows brain to hear it and see it, with interest. The invisible player is conscious. He knows of his world, his invisible world, his invisible family, and he is aware of the physical world, story world. Very sophisticated and very convincing, but he sees it as a story and knows his complete independence from the story. And can clearly see it right now. That story may disappear, may come to an end, and that is story that comes to an end. Even this gathering is happening in the story. That invisible player, he knows his attitude is this. That is a story gathering. It's like a film. And film finishes. He knows everyone in his world, they are all safe. And his world is beyond harm. He knows of immortality and eternity. Thank you. Yesterday we saw preparation. In this world, there is lots of machinery preparing for birth. There is every country and the governments, everyone is involved in preparing for birth. But there is no thought even preparing for death at any level. There is no education there. And that concept itself may not exist many places. And we see this as very relevant. And what's a great opportunity. We'll see it. Now, to prepare for that, we have to prepare whole life. We need the understanding, the bigger map, and we are learning to die, really, and if you conquer that, yesterday we used the word conquering that, then you live this life differently. Otherwise, everyone on this planet is leading a life. He is worrying about that every second. There's a nice saying, those who die when they are alive, they never die when they die. So those who have conquered death, they don't have to think of death anymore. There is no fear of any kind. And even when they die, they don't die. Those who have not died when they are alive, they spend their every second dying. They are worried about their death. So it affects the quality of life. Leave aside future, but it affects the present, this life itself. And so, there are people who study this subject of death and have got a real understanding, because when you see statistics and all, they realize that there has to be education on this subject in schools. People need to be aware of what death is, and there is a reality. Otherwise, most cultures pushing it under the carpet. Don't want to think of it. Don't talk about it. Don't mm, don't mention this word death. So here we are seeing that the area, this physical world, you know, we become very, very clear of this when we see the spiritual map. You are then authority. Once you have seen the bigger map, you are an authority on this subject. What happens when you have seen the bigger map? You are understanding the beautiful truth of everyone. We also know what has happened to everyone. Only when you see with the bigger map, then we can understand what has happened. And what has happened to everyone? They all are immortal. They all are eternal princes. They all are beings of joy and love. They all are from the family of God. God loves them. That's why we say they are princes. And all that has happened, you are then in this spiral. Then they are into the Maya's world. And the same ones spending their lives as beggars, literally beggars, begging for things that they've already got. Such is the life that is led. They are seeing themselves as victims. They are worrying about things, crying. They are immortal, but they are worrying about death, as was said. Every second they are dying. They are loved and they are worthy of respect, but they are begging for respect and unhappy if they don't get anything. They hear Maya has made them into bats, complete upside down. It is like a complete absence of respect. What is happening here is they are coming back to the right way up. This is what the first step for us and for everyone. See the world right way up. We can't solve this upside down. We can't solve anything in darkness. Everything is here, but if they can't even see the full picture in darkness, there are no answers to anything. So let us come to this in a full light, full experience again. And beautiful aspect in this, every second we are experiencing it, we help ourselves, we make it easy for others to experience it. Light doesn't remain just for one, it is something that goes beyond. So this minute we understand we have the option to use the best sight, best intellect. We clearly see the story, everything that happened today, it happened in the story. When we step behind the story, we see this expanse. We literally see with the eye of the mind this region of light. We see it in red color. Aware that this is a region beyond. This is a region of the father and the family. All are immortal. All need nothing from anywhere. They exist forever without needing anything. In a true sense, ignorant of desires. And if they are ignorant of desires, they are ignorant of the word sorrow, ignorant of disappointments. World where there is silent contentment. If there are no desires, no harm, if they are immortal, their life becomes natural happiness, life of contentment. All and always. In this environment of full security, they can afford to be fully innocent, harmless, innocent. That's why childlike. All are like this, childlike and godlike. That's why worthy of immense love. This region is of joy, love, innocence, but every aspect is 100% full innocence, always innocent, full happiness, because there are no blocks of any kind. Full love, everyone lovely, everyone loving. That's why word of God, word with God. The soul becomes conscious in this environment because this becomes normal and natural for him. It is in this environment he finds it obvious to be that incorporeal observer. The true self becomes conscious. And the true self, first thing he knows is his complete independence from the story. This gathering is happening in the story. At the same time, this invisible player, he knows his complete independence from it. He knows his life with God, worthy to be loved by God, worthy to have company of God, from the family of God. He knows everyone is lucky. They all are from the same home, same family. From here, as he continues his journey, his travels in the sky, on earth, he remains conscious of his extraordinary truth. He remains the invisible traveler. He remains the soul, temporarily associated with everything of the physical, fully aware that that is a story world and it is a foreign world. It is not his world. And it is a temporary world. He has no intention to be deceived in that foreign world. Thank you. Yesterday we underlined the word and I also spoke of it as a homework. Invisible player is the invisible traveler, and he is also the invisible incarnate. He got a very clear mission. We underline this word, incarnate. We are underlining this, that he is not the role. There is a role that is going on. Here, Prashant is a role in the story. We are seeing this invisible traveler, 100% separate, not mixing it. Ego wants to mix it. That is the way ego can survive. We are seeing it is 100% separate. Invisible traveler existed before even this drama started. See it clearly, and then that is a necessary preparation for all this. Only when we see it very clearly, we are prepared. Or we cross that line, mix it with ego, make ego bigger, more we create attachments. More is our struggle. with the journey in this life and beyond also. Penalties come from this first second. The moment we cross the line, instantly victim comes and the beggar comes. So it is like we are dealing with that mentality. First second we cross the line. That's why when this invisible traveler is conscious, then he knows of the exit. Yesterday we underlined this word exit. That is necessary for our preparation. If the exit is forgotten, then we are into the spiral. When the exit is clear, remember the story we spoke yesterday, of the child. Why child got deceived? Because exit is not seen. We need to, one is to know of the exit, but remind of the exit repeatedly. Excellent. Happy to hear your comments, your thoughts. And then we are going to watch a short video, and I will tell you about the video, but first let me hear any thoughts from you.
There is one question, no thoughts at the moment in the chat, but maybe just briefly from here. When you said we need different words, and then you were sharing about the invisible traveler, I realized how helpful it is to listen actively, because we actually, I think, pay most attention when we're active in our learning in some way. And even listening, I might sometimes use a word which creates even more awareness, completely new word for the self. And I noticed concentration was much better. So to notice that for the self. And yes, I really like this. Invisible traveler existed before even the drama started. It's like we have to start from outside of the foreign world with the new programming. Otherwise, we're fighting with the old programming or embellishing it. And you used the word earlier when we were discussing earlier today. We might, what's the word you used? Romanticize. No, a bit of sentimentality can come around this subject of death, and it can be again about the story somehow. So it's interesting to notice that in the self. Yeah, so we need the invisible witness can comprehend exit. Okay, so we have a couple of questions. Can attachment to others stop a soul from leaving the body?
And this drama has a beginning. Every episode has a beginning and an end. So nothing is permanent here. But the more important is leaving the body. Is it painful? Does it lead to, is death painful? The only reason death is painful because of attachments. The only reason there is sorrow with that or even fear of death is because we have crossed the line. If that attachment was zero, then these are different experiences. And we come in some place, we leave the place, there are different experiences. You go by a lift sometimes, you go by escalator. Variety of experiences. You don't see it as bad, but attachments makes it bad, interprets it as bad. Yeah.
A couple of comments about the happiness of seeing this as a story. and experiencing the original state, which is drama-free. Not directly related question, but nevertheless a common question that's helpful to clarify. In Parandam, does the soul have an awakened consciousness? Or is it, what's the consciousness there?
One thing is sure, we are not aware of the story when we are in Paramdam, but we are aware of our home. It is a bit like everything is, story chapters are closed. There are no thoughts of the story. Now we'll come to the video. And first video, we are going to see two videos. First is an interview with one neuropsychologist, neuropsychiatrist. He is based in London, Peter Fennick, and he's connected with us. He has been to our retreat centers many times, science retreats. He is taking part in those. But this is a short video. He has studied more than 300 cases of death, very involved in near-death studies and various research in this area, consciousness area. But we'll listen to what he says about his work, research, and observations. It is a short part we are showing of his interview.
What we said was correct. People do, in fact, go into this other reality. But we come now to the dying process itself, which is enormously interesting and important. And we all need to learn this. In fact, we should be taught it in school. And the way that dying, I think, is, it's like this. Deathbed visitors come, fine. Then, at some moment, you realize you're going to die. And it hits you hard. We're not coming back, guys. This isn't a getting well process. It's a dying process. And that then leaves you in a very difficult position because you've never come across that before. You've always had some control over something. You now don't. And so you have to start giving everything up. This is absolutely fundamental. You have to give up the fact that you're going to go on living. You have to give up your wife. You have to give up your cat and your dog. You have to give up your children, your family. You have to give up your house and your job. You've got to give up everything. And if you don't, you remain attached. Now, attachment is the most difficult thing when you're dying. If you could give everything up, you'd have a very smooth transition. You go from this pre-transition, where you're attached, to transition, which is a sort of intermediate one, to post-transition. And in post-transition, you in fact have given everything up. And you go more and more into the spiritual domain. But when you actually die, if you have a drive, say, to go and see a daughter or a son who couldn't be there with you, then you can visit. And the visit is very specific. We've got a lot of these and we've analyzed them. And they occur at the time of death. 99% are all within half an hour. Most are at the actual time of death. And it depends on the mental state of the person who receives the visit. If you receive the visit and you're awake, then it will be a feeling that somebody you know is dying, the feeling that they would like some help in some way, or you feel some catastrophe is occurring. Those are the sorts of feelings you have. Mm-hmm. If, on the other hand, you're asleep, then it's quite different. You get a narrative dream, and here's an example of one. A woman woke up. I think she was actually in a narrative dream, and she saw standing at the end of the bed, her son, and her son was dripping wet. And her son came closer and closer to her, and as he came closer, he came into the light and became transfigured. He gave her a message, which many of them do, and said, "It's okay, please don't worry, I'm all right." And then the whole thing faded. Now, the interesting point is that she's in Australia and he's in England. And when she can, when the time zones adjust, she rings up and she finds that, in fact, he was drowned at that time in England. And so there was a component of what was happening in that he had wet clothes, and then his transformation and disappearance at the end. So that's not an unusual story. Sometimes they just come and give their message, which is always, "I'm okay, please don't worry," and then move on. So those are called deathbed coincidences.
Yeah, some insight into how the death, phenomena around it, the paranormal phenomena. He also mentions that here he speaks of the one who has died, he visiting the deceased, visits others, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in those who are not asleep. Even they get a feeling that something is happening. But even before that, he says there are visitors, and he said this in another gathering at a global house. He was giving a talk, and he said, no one dies alone. This is a statement he makes. There is someone who comes, sometimes strangers, sometimes they project sometimes on someone. Like, for example, Mary comes and tells the person that I'm going to come tomorrow at 11 o'clock. And she is quite happy with that. The patient is quite happy. Okay. And she tells the nurses, I'm going to leave tomorrow. Nurses ask why. Mary came and told me that I'm at 11. And she leaves the body next day at 11. These kind of cases happen quite frequently. And 3% of these cases in West or in England are angels, but more in America. He thinks it is because of cultural thing, but different people project it on different. But there is some visitor, he says, they see in almost all these cases. Sorry, that was a sneeze. So visitor comes, and there is, he makes a statement, no one dies alone. There is someone who accompanies them, takes them across. And sometimes children, and if no one else sees this person who is visiting the patient, but there are cases where children notice. Children say, yes, I saw someone coming at a certain time, this kind of language. But other staff in the hospice, no one else notices. Yeah, happy to hear any other comments or questions.
I'm sure there are lots of reflections. I really like the way he emphasized about attachment, and in all religious traditions there is some understanding of final thoughts being important, and I know it's often mentioned here. It's the sum total of the past. It's not just reading the scripture at the end. So it really shows. Yes, and how the mechanism is working, but also how wonderful that it's very smooth when there's a clarity in the soul. There are no other comments coming up right now.
What we are really seeing here, leave aside the subject of death, but what we are seeing in our body consciousness, this process of we moving from soul conscious state to ego-based state, something that is immensely beautiful, it changed into something that is negative. I'm talking of the whole life. The truth about everyone is immensely beautiful. We got an eternal home. We ourselves are immortal. They are angelic souls. They are loved by God, life of happiness and joy. And this is everything else is extra. And there are, of course, beginning and end to different experiences, but it is extra. There is birth in heaven, there is death in heaven, but there is no sorrow. People want to go to heaven. But what is difference? Our attitude. When we cross the line, the same world, we said earlier, everyone is a prince, everyone is immortal, everyone is loved, but they are begging for life and begging for love and begging for happiness and worrying about things, fighting for things. We change something that is positive into negative. What Milton says, mind can create heaven of hell, hell of heaven. And this literally we see this happening. And now is the time we are learning how we can turn back this hell into heaven. How to get this mind where we are seeing this world, what is in front of us as it is. These are all Iron Age episodes. How can we see this in a completely different perspective? This is what we are learning.
There is a question and a comment here.
Yeah.
Comment, a friend lived in an earthquake zone as a child and looked after his family and younger brother, and he saw an angel appear at the end of his bed during one earthquake, reassuring him. There are so many of these stories, aren't there? So it's very nice to see a pattern. How is the death process for animals?
We are in the Iron-Aged world. We have human beings. Once we cross the line, we bring everyone else across in that same lower consciousness. So there is definitely sorrow. There no one dies without sorrow, human or animal. But as we also saw, more the attachments, greater is the sorrow and greater is the misery. Not just the process of dying, but the future also. We take that misery with us beyond. So this is like the penalty. And this is what the whole knowledge is emphasizing. Come out of all these bondages here of all levels, subtle, gross, come out of this. Because then there are prizes. At the immediate level, you don't suffer, but future also you don't suffer. Animals have less of the bondages, so their misery is less with death.
Is it preferable for the deceased body to be cremated or buried? Because there's different traditions in different cultures.
Some of the near-death experience and some of these experiences suggest that sooner the body is cremated in whatever form, better it is for the soul. There are some instances where soul has expressed his suffering just because body is not cremated.
The cremation is better and sooner.
Yeah.
It's difficult in the West because it takes like a month sometimes. Yeah.
These are just anecdotal cases, not we don't know if everyone experiences it, but it makes sense. If it is all finished, then the soul can move on. If it is still there and it is just an extra distraction for you.
Yeah, thank you. Someone is sharing an experience of going through a physical crisis, but experiencing huge peace and waking up in hospital. So the realization was it's not necessarily bad. It's like a very peaceful experience. It could be. Of course, she was very close to death, so she was sharing her experience.
Nice. Now we will come to the next video, and this is a video of near-death experience of a person, and it is just a short part of it, but you will see. If Sarah want to add a little bit more about what you know about this case.
Sorry, I was muted. This gentleman is sharing experience of drowning, and he was struggling to get back to the top, get to the water, but at some point he had to let go. So he was a child, and he's recalling and sharing his experience as a much older adult, but remembers everything very vividly. So we're picking up at the point where he's describing this letting go.
And at this moment, everything is screaming in my body. I'm dying. I finally admit that I'm dying. And then all of a sudden there's a voice in my head, and it's a voice that I remember, but I don't know who it is. And the voice says, Andy, you need to stop and rest for a while. And then I'm talking to myself in my head, and I'm saying, are you crazy? I got to get up. I need at least one breath of air. That's all I ask, is one breath of air. And the voice says to me, Andy, you really need to rest. So just relax and let go. And I said, I can't do that. And the voice says again, you need to let go. And so I say to the voice, okay, do you promise that if I let go, I'll be able to get to the top? And the voice says to me, if you let go, everything will be fine. I said, okay, you promise? And the voice says, yes, I promise. So then I said, okay, I'll let go. And the moment that the word go formed in my mind, I popped out of my body, and in what I call a moment of no time, I'm at one point I'm in my body, and at the next point I'm in this tunnel. And I don't remember going to the tunnel. It was just, now I'm in my body, now I'm in the tunnel. And in the tunnel, I'm warm, I'm happy, I can breathe again. I'm just filled with the joy and unconditional love. It was so stark. It was such a change from complete terror to complete ultimate ecstasy in a minute of no time. And I'm just so completely happy. I look down and I can see a body, and I'm saying, it's funny, I can see that because it was dark down there. And I look and, yep, that's my body. I don't care. I look, and I didn't care. At the moment that I saw my body at the bottom of the lake, I didn't care about my life. I didn't care about being on earth, because I knew I was home. And then I turned in the other direction. And now I'm looking at a spot of light. And the light is not very big, but it is so bright it should be burning my retinas. And I'm saying, wow, now that's a bright light, but it doesn't hurt. And now I feel myself being drawn like a magnet, like a giant magnet. The magnet's pulling me through the tunnel, and I'm starting to get closer to the light. And then all of a sudden, in a moment of no time, I'm no longer in the tunnel. Now I'm in the middle of a giant sphere about the size of a soccer coliseum, huge. And I'm hovering in the middle of this ball, in the inside of the ball. And around it, all 360 degrees, everywhere I look, are little motion picture screens of all of my lives and of all of the things that I'm doing. And the light is next to me. I don't see it, but I feel it and I know it's there. And the light and I start to communicate about all of these events in all of my lives. And I could see them all, and nothing was confusing. I understood everything.
He later speaks a little bit about his experience. Shall we play one more minute, Bishop?
Yeah.
Another short excerpt from his sharing.
You were in the light. Did you ask them about the war and peace and all? I said, no, I didn't ask them. There's no reason to ask questions because I knew it all. There was nothing that was unknown. And now I'm with the light, and the light is really funny. The light has a fantastic sense of humor, laughter, fun. When we were looking at my life review in the big sphere, the light would say, Andy, look how upset you got over that. You know, in the long run, it doesn't mean anything. Why don't you loosen up? Why don't you lighten up? Why don't you have more fun while you're on the planet? You're only going to be there for a little while because it's not real. Earth life is not real. It's like a play. It's like a movie.
So it was a play, and it is a movie. Locking people saying this, it is quite an extraordinary thing, and it is nice. It gives us some insights from different angle. Anyone want to add anything, any aspect? And, Sarah, want to add anything?
It helps the conviction because it's absolutely direct experience. And there are many things like freedom from attachment. When you have something, like he said, I was home, and recognition. He wasn't religious, but he said, this is God, this is my friend I'd always known but forgotten. And so many aspects, they really tie up with, what we understand through Raj Yoga and through our experiences as well. So I think maybe the only thing when we're listening to these, there are many like this, is the understanding of the details of karma and what it actually is to be in this world and also have the freedom and see it as a play. So where they have the experience, but we have the option to integrate, to be in that lightness, but also play the role, because it's not about escaping. And sometimes the NDEs don't know how to do that because they've got the peak experience. But to have the intellect does need stretching to manage it. Yeah,
Come back to
some questions have come up, but yeah, please continue.
Yeah, sure. And just a quick reminder, the biggest success would be and how for ourselves and for this world, how we can turn it around again. We said we have made something beautiful ugly, and the truth is beautiful, but just we are seeing it upside down, and then everything becomes reason for sorrow and fear, and we are literally fighting and destroying when it is not necessary at all. And the reason is because of the consciousness, drop of consciousness. But even those who are spiritual effort makers, we know about things, but something has to be accurately done, then the shift will happen. Since we are serious about it, we might as well do it accurately. And there are obstacles. That's why we hear the word Maya, and God has to come to teach this. We remain 100% light about the whole. Baba wants us to remain light, but we also need to be 100% serious. Otherwise, Maya just tricks us. And what is happening here? The one who is to become soul conscious, he is not conscious. That is the twist within it. The one who is conscious is the ego. Ego is conscious, and the one who can be soul conscious and one who is really wants to be conscious, he is not even there. And you are making effort to become conscious, and there is nobody else can do this job for us. We have to do this job. And in such a situation, there's our analysis and logic and that kind of process, it all becomes ego-based effort. Ego-based effort will be very much, you are thinking about making Prashant spiritual, by making Prashant into soul conscious. Prashant becomes a yogi. Here we are saying we need to take this little jump, and in this jump you are realizing that invisible player becomes conscious, completely different, invisible. That tiny point, he becomes conscious, and he is not the extension of anyone. It's a jump. He becomes conscious and he sees things from that fresh perspective. We need to give ourselves that permission, even for 1 minute, to see it that way. Clean, unpolluted, not mixed. And even if 1 minute you get a glimpse, you've seen this, you get into the experiences. They are free from the screening of ego, not mixed with ego, not polluted by ego. So this is the necessary step. Taking that jump, see the perspective of the soul. In the Murli of today, we heard Baba saying, Baba is talking to seniors here, and Baba says, karmatic stage, incorporeal stage, angel stage. What was Baba's emphasis there? To get this stage, what is the effort? Do you want to tell? What is the secret? Those who heard the Murli of today, you can tell.
The question, to achieve incorporeal stage, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So to become incorporeal and karmatit and angelic stage, what is the effort? Or what was Baba underlining extra?
Someone has written connection with Baba, so consciousness, love, egoless.
Yeah, Baba said egoless. That's right. Nirahankari. And so Baba was underlining extra part. Baba says, ordinarily we say arrogance, but this Baba says putting extra emphasis. There is another department. It is not just some people got arrogance. see the subtle area of the ego. In other words, different identities. All the different identities we have. They are all in a body conscious department. They are all your bondages within that foreign world, in the story world. Are you using the story to define yourselves in some form? Are you using the story to claim anything, any kind of support, that foreign world? The ego, these false identities, they're shamelessly, claiming things within it. And big secret, Baba is saying there. This has to be dropped. All these false identities that are there. Understand the story is separate. Even the role you are playing, that is from the foreign world. Like we are literally saying, Prashant, that whole thing about Prashant is in the foreign world, in the story world. And who is saying this? The invisible witness. An invisible witness is the invisible player. He is incorporeal. And he is always the observer of this. He's always the witness. And see how we can keep him conscious, always observer of the story. And he has his supreme reality beyond. It is that shift from ego to the soul, to that observer. Not to take it lightly, take it seriously, because if that is done, then we really go in the different consciousness. Otherwise, it becomes ego-based effort. Yeah, let us hear the comments or questions.
The questions were connected to the video, so they've been answered actually. So yeah, we're good. Yesterday there was a sharing, which was a nice reminder that often, because we know the soul in a sense is like sitting in the control room of this body, but for the experiments, to see it as really separate, to see it as if just aside from the physical body, and very clearly different as a reference in the mind, as a light, and giving it a name to consolidate. It is very different from the raw. You can keep coming back to it, and from there look at the raw, see its performance. Usually there's some commentary which you can more easily detect, which is a Ravan-based, character-obsessed negotiation or posturing. So really nice to just step aside, almost, see it light, separate. So I think, as in the blessing today, something like that has to be almost constant to get the right energy inside, to have this freedom to really go completely beyond the larger narrative, the larger drama. So one question here, is the same level of knowledge and spiritual development of a soul brought to the next birth?
Yes, sure. Whatever we have achieved, whether we are going up or down, whatever habits I create today, they go with me to tomorrow. The same habits continue tomorrow, good or bad. And same thing happens from one life to the other life.
Yeah.
if it is time for rooms, happy with that.
Yes, we can save the questions for after. As it so happens, it's interesting we've got this clip because apparently Peter Fenwick actually passed away last week, or this last week. Just apparently it was mentioned. So yeah. Would you like to pose a question for
Sure.
discussion? Bisham would like to pose a question for the room discussion.
All right. Okay. And what is the preparation? If we are to help anyone, whether it is last minute or during the journey, life, how are we going to prepare others for this process through death?
Yeah, just starting the
I
discussion.
just want to also say that one thing that is seen in studies also, cultures where they hide that, don't discuss that, push it under the carpet. These are the areas where there is more greed and more vices. In other words, they don't use the word vices, but more violence. All these things increase, and it becomes clear. The more someone is cultures where there is awareness of this, they go less into the body consciousness, or that drive towards body consciousness becomes less. Where that is not addressed, or the language used is push under the carpet, means they don't address it. They don't want to discuss it, see it. Subconsciously, they think this is the only world, and they end up becoming more body conscious. It reflects through more violence, more greed, and more addictions. So the question for us is, how do we help people prepare for that? How do we educate?
Vision. Okay, thank you. So enjoy the discussion, and just a reminder for giving opportunity for others to share, for the facilitators to give others the mic, and we'll be meeting back in just over 10 minutes. Thank you. Thank you. I hope that you had enough time, at least sharing. I'm going to create a moment of this stepping back, the experience of this experiencer behind the question. easing that each moment is fresh and new, and this is what is natural, isn't it? Each experience is a new experience. Today we're going to hear from Ananta, who's based in Manhattan, and will share some reflections on this topic. So good afternoon, I think. Great to hear from you. Welcome. Are you able to unmute? Yes.
Yes, it is afternoon, early afternoon. It's nice to be with you. So there's so much to say about this topic. I was thinking in Prashant's introduction where he was pointing out that there is so much more preparation for birth than there is for death. And even throughout our time, you know, the culture is that you only have one life to live. And so even those of us with knowledge have to constantly override that tendency to not stay in the awareness that we are eternal. And so it is, of course, the Iron Age, and we are all body conscious. Yeah, I can't help noting that the lowest status or level in the golden and silver age are cremators. I don't think there are any grave diggers there because we understand that the body is not doesn't have any value. But once we start to value it, then we have these huge mausoleums and pyramids and so on, preserving our remains. And that continues even to today, where even the preparation for it is disguised as life insurance rather than death insurance. Nobody calls you up and say they're coming to talk to you about death insurance because you probably wouldn't give them an appointment. But of course, when they get there, they're asking you how you plan to take care of things when you're gone. And so just the acknowledgement is very difficult because we haven't adjusted to the understanding that we are eternal. And as Prashant, in answer to the question about animals and insects and so on, whoever we are in terms of our own consciousness, they're the same. You know, when you walk into your home and you turn the lights on and those uninvited guests start scattering, they're really running for their lives because they value their lives as well. And of course, we know that those of us who are familiar with the industries that are in the slaughtering business, you know, the animals are so disturbed before they are slaughtered. And so the best preparation we can make is to remind ourselves that we are eternal and to be able to have that sense that for every end there's a new beginning. I so love Rabindranath Tagore's expression of it, where he says that death is not the extinguishing of the light, but putting out the lamp because dawn has come. And that's how we have to learn to live life. And of course, if you die alive, then you are able to live happily as opposed to the ones who are living in fear of death. And so there's so much to take away from these sessions and to churn on. And so the effort for this one and ongoingly is to maintain that consciousness that I am here, was here, and will always be here. And so to use every moment to make it worthwhile, not only here, but hereafter. And understanding that, of course, whatever progress you make, whatever efforts you make, whatever efforts you make, you don't lose. You you don't take you don't take the car and the house or anything else with you, but you take that character, and it gives us a reason to make the world a better place and to understand that our role is so essential. And so this is very uplifting. And really appreciate having the opportunity to to be in knowledge and to be so fortunate, maybe so chosen, if you will. And I trust that for all of us, this will give us the right space to be in, and also to help others to come to this understanding as well. Om Shanti.
Oh, Shanti. Thank you so much, Ananta, for your sharing and the perspective and synthesizing the ideas. Wanted to mention as well, to correct earlier statement, there was someone called Peter Fenwick who passed on last week, but it's a different Peter Fenwick, Australia, just to put the record straight. So we know, although he is nearly 90. I'm going to read a short passage from a Merli from the 3rd of April 82, which was entitled The Real Meaning of Renunciation. You have to leave everything, but you are leaving something and receiving something new in its place. Is that difficult? You can receive it instantly. To receive in the future is not important, but to shed the consciousness of the body now and claim the form of the angel now. When the consciousness of the body of the old world has been shed, what do you become? Double light. This happens now. If you belong neither here nor there, it would seem difficult. But then you give a deep sigh again and again. Difficulty brings with it a deep sigh. The die brings pleasure. But die totally, or at the time of taking you say, I will take everything. Yet at the time of leaving, you won't even leave the clay vessel. This is the difficulty. If you want to keep the vessel of clay, what can Bapdada do? You cause yourself distress, and so Dada tells you to leave it. If something old is retained, what is the result? It makes the intellect stumble around and does not allow you to experience the angelic stage. Bapdada, for the benefit of the children, says to shed all the old things. Don't half die. Either die fully or stay alive. This isn't difficult, but you make it become difficult. Thank you.
And said, I want to add anything to the passage.
Seems self-explanatory, but I think we need this angle again and again, that he's seeing it as very natural, but we need to do it totally. So it connects with the third person practice earlier. You need to completely separate, and then there's a clarity about how you have achieved that experience of freedom. It's very easy for ego to jump on something, take commission and mix himself. And we only will really know that at the final moment. So to keep these things very separate and clear, the double light angel is not mixed with the role. It is a formula that it's not accidental that you have a good yoga. It's a very clear method. I had a question though, clay vessel, did it mean the body?
No, it is like a clay pot,
Ah,
with that meaning. So something insignificant, but you are not letting go of it.
and when
Holding
he's,
everything.
yeah, like an old broken pot.
Yeah, yeah.
You can get attached. We think we've let go, but then we might have a little thing like my cupboard for the surrendered sisters. They might have a little bit of small thing. At the end, don't half die, either fully die or stay alive. What was the meaning of that?
You know, so spiritual life is, you are dying a living death. You let go of the old iron-aged life, and then you are a soul, fully soul. So someone wants to die, but not. If I die, then I don't own anything. And yesterday we gave the example: Sklodowska dies, then even the bones don't belong to him. That body doesn't belong to him. It is as if someone else's. He has a new life. But someone is holding on to the clay pot that is still mine, then it is half dead. With Baba is meaning that way.
Hmm. There are a few questions, but shall I read them now?
Sure.
Are we responsible for any sorrow we create to our family if they die with sorrow?
The bottom line is each one is responsible for his own sorrows. If someone is out of the body consciousness, no one can give him sorrow. So that is the bottom line. But we all have to check if there is any intention to give sorrow. If that is not there, then one can remain carefree. People can take sorrow for any reason, and that is each one's account.
Soul wants to go home and there is ego that wants to complicate. So how does karma play into this push and pull?
Yeah, ego, it is not his home. It is the home of the soul. Ego wants to survive, and he can survive if you stay here. So ego is absolutely determined to block you from not just going home, but even becoming soul conscious even for 1 second. Such is the life of the ego. But nice way to deal with this: ego flourishes in darkness. Ego disappears in light, dissolves. Ego dissolves. So here, darkness of ignorance, when we create that environment, that absolutely favors ego. You bring in full clarity. Like right now, we are discussing this bigger map, and we are are seeing the journey of the soul, and we are seeing this as a story. We are using the language. It is a cartoon. In that environment, to create ego appears so strange and so absurd. We make ego weaker, and as ego becomes weaker, you are able to go on the other side more easily. Often we say we have to work on both fronts. We have to create time. The other side is our home, my father, family, home, the soul. We have to work on that, but also not to feed the ego, not to work for to stop the ego and make it shrink. That is another attention is required.
Thank you. Maybe there may be a follow-up question on that,
Sure.
but I'll come back to it. Yeah, there's a comment about how this is pushed under the carpet, the subject of death, and it can create more trauma or violence in families. So the person is looking for meaning and understanding and any supporting material to help with this. It's maybe more of a comment, but if you have anything to add.
Yeah, in the world outside, there is no real preparation for this. No one is preparing for that because they don't have the bigger map, and so they may say drop attachment, reduce attachment. But here we are, what we discussed now yesterday, today, so we just need to go through, revise, see the immortality and remind others of immortality. That is the way to prepare. Seeing the exit, that is very important part. Reminding ourselves. Sometimes we show those sketches that we drew yesterday, today, with the arrow. That is, its purpose is to remind us of the exit. That this is a short journey here, worth writing even, on that sketch. This is the foreign world, and it is a story world. It is not our world. It may appear so normal, but it is ego that feels it is normal. Now, very different question I want to ask. Giving a scenario, if you are to be faced with a situation where then you may either die or you survive. But to survive, you have to break your own moral code. For example, you may have a gun, you have to use the gun, and then you will survive. But otherwise, you die. What is your choice? If you are in a situation like this, what will be your preferred choice? How will you react in those situations? The highest and the noblest is position. One who knows the big map and one who knows the reality, awake, one who is awake. He has come here as an incarnate. He has not come here to live. He has come here to give. And death is not a problem to him at all. But there is no reason why he should stop being the angel. He has come here as an angel. He is an incarnate. He is lucky and he remains lucky forever. Why should he stop being the angel even for 1 second? That will be his thinking. If the invisible incarnate is conscious. And that is the highest and the noblest. He lives as an angel, he dies as an angel. One who dies as a merchant, not an angel, but as a merchant, that is more important for him. Who dies as a Shudra, or dies as a robber, what you have to use violence to survive, dies as a robber or as a criminal, but he survives. If you die as a criminal, you live as a criminal. If you die as an angel, you will be reborn as an angel. That continues, journey continues. But which journey we want to live in, that is a choice. To think this way, we certainly need the broader intellect and the subtle intellect and the future and reality beyond. It has to become very, very obvious. Stone intellect, his choices. He want to survive here at any cost. That will be his preferred choice. Yeah, any other thoughts? So we will create some time for practice before we finish. But any final thoughts from Sarah?
It's contemplating that the golden age is called the land of immortality. So that is a deep reference point for souls who've experienced being in the drama, and as was said, they do die, like the body finishes, but they are conscious of who they are, so they don't experience concept of death. And I guess this is because they are the ones who have reprogrammed at this time. But all are immortal, so yeah, we have to put this to help ourselves and help others. We want to do that, but the best thing we can do is to experience their immortality, so it's easier to step into it for everyone, because whether or not they have that reference, that is the truth. And almost like you're coming from there, from that clarity, whether it's home or the new world, and seeing that they're just in transition, and so is the soul self. Something to anchor the mind. But this land of death, in contrast, is like a maze, isn't it? So it's just reflecting on this. So, no other comments.
So let us create another minute of attention and few words for us. And most important word, our word of immortality. That everyone is immortal. This invisible incarnate, he is immortal. We are friends of that invisible incarnate. That's why we are here. Friends. Baba is the friend of the soul, and we are also a friend of souls and souls, family of souls. And they are all lucky and all are noble, divine, all are good. And that's why we say truth is beautiful at all levels. It is beyond belief, truth. And we want to come back in this space. And we want to take everyone else in that space where they can see their own greatness. Our world is subtle and eternal. So use the right intellect. The game is won. As we continue on our journey in the sky, on earth, we remember this immensely beautiful truth and options that we have every minute. Thank you.
Finished with a few minutes of show from Madhavan. This continued homework and experiments. Thank you all so much.
अभिषेकन में सभी मैं परम धाम निवासी श्रेष्ठ आत्मा हूँ। इस स्मृति के स्विच को ऑन करो और कोई भी स्मृति नहीं हो, कोई बुद्धि में अड़चन नहीं हो। अचल अच्छा